Yo, welcome to the LA Music Show, guys.
Welcome to the LA Music Show.
Yep.
Episode 1. All right, well, what are we going to talk about?
Anything, I guess. Hey, dude, so I heard you brought something.
Me?
Yeah, something special.
All right, hold on.
Aside from that, you brought something.
I brought this special coin my mom gave me. It's here, if you want to show it to the camera. The whole idea of it is compassionate democracy. It's a 50-cent piece from the 40s or 50s, was my grandfather's. And my mom is an Indian Navajo jeweler. She's not Indian, but she learned from the Navajos. And it has a representation of the 13 colonies on the original coin. And she stamped around the edges the Navajo symbol for peace and unity. And the whole idea is compassionate democracy, you know, because of JFK's vision and message, and the idea of the Navajos being in touch with the land, and being in touch with each other, and having compassionate communities. So hopefully we can learn something from that.
This is
From the 1940s or 50s.
Wow,
yeah.
dude. This thing weighs.
It does.
It's pretty heavy.
Real silver, huh?
Real silver.
That's what's that, dude. That my dad collected a bunch of those. He had like 4 or 5 real silver ones, and like the rest of them were just plated, I think. But they're worth a lot of money.
Is it true we've mined all the silver in the world?
I don't know about that. I mean, there's definitely some. There's so much ocean water. It could be on an ocean. You know, people say like we're running out of oil. You know, there's oil all over the world.
So by the time we find a Cloverfield monster, we'll find more silver?
Why not? You don't believe in monsters? There's so much of the world that people haven't seen yet.
I believe in monsters. I believe in aliens. I believe in ghosts.
What kind of monsters?
What kind of monsters are we talking? There are many kinds of monsters.
There's spirit
mythological
monsters, man.
creatures. There's creatures we killed off, probably. There's things that most likely exist but are outside of our realm of comprehension, like multiple dimensional, you know, Pacific Rim type fucking monsters. You know what I mean? Things that can kind of like bend and mold to any reality that they're in.
You've been watching too many movies, dude. No, I think dragons are probably were probably real.
Dragons were probably real. I mean,
At one point.
there's mythology from all parts of the world where they've actually like sort of concluded that there was probably something we hunted off.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And they probably used the bones as like a sex tonic.
Yeah.
Probably ate the meat and then used the skin as armor, and in time all that sort of stuff dissipates. That was the
Right.
big argument. Is why haven't we found any bones? And it's probably because we used them.
I have
Same
a
way we
theory.
use animal bones now.
I have a theory that like even if there wasn't dragons, if there was they would find dinosaur bones like looking for copper or anything like during the Bronze Age, like right when society started coming up, and they'd find these dinosaur bones, and like whoever was the priest or the king at the time would be like, "Look, I killed a fucking dragon." And like I brought the head, so everyone would like follow him. You know, it was like look at this symbol, like a fucking, you know, like and it stayed around for a while, but then it just broke down because once you take it out of the ground, if you don't preserve it, it'll fuck up, it'll fall apart.
Yeah.
You know.
So what was the main prerogative we wanted to talk about in this podcast? Democratizing rock music, democratizing
Well, I mean,
monetization of music in general.
so the other day, I don't know, I couldn't sleep, and for whatever reason, I thought about there being some sort of podcast that emphasizes the underground rock and roll scene. So what I did is I typed in rock and roll podcast, and nothing showed up. I typed in, okay, music show, and the first thing that showed up was like David Letterman and like Conan O'Brien. I'm like, what the fuck, like music show? I kept switching the keywords around, and I couldn't really find anything that was music related, aside from like Mike Pensato and some random dude in like Louisiana or something. So that's when I told you, like, man, there should be some sort of show or podcast that's about the underground rock and roll scene, and people come on, they're musicians in LA or anywhere in the world. Like, it doesn't matter. For me, I've always wanted there to be some sort of show. Like, what do you guys think about Andre? Like, his fucking shows are crazy. Have you seen them?
Are you talking the morning show?
Yeah, like he brings on all these celebrities, and he does like crazy, outrageous shit. And I don't think some of it's planned. I think he just fucks around, you know? Not that
Have you watched the very first episode ever? I wonder if they were uncomfortable. I wonder if it started off. Because, like, I'm a little uncomfortable right now. I'm still getting used to this. There's 3 cameras in 3 multiple directions. We all have microphones. We know we're being filmed. We know we have audio on us. So that alone is enough to just make you a little bit unnatural, you know? So, like, I guess what I'm wondering is how long does it take before you actually just get totally natural? Like before, it's like you cannot actually tell the subjective difference between being filmed and not being filmed. And what actually does it take to get to that point? Do you think Joe Rogan's guests, that's why he gets crazier and crazier guests, because he wants to be taken out of his own reality that much further?
Probably.
Damn.
I think he gives them, you know, like a stage just to talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours about whatever they want. And what Joe Rogan is just like the regular guy kind of that's interested in these little things. And
He's a regular Joe.
he's a regular, yeah. And what it does, people like watching it a lot, and it becomes viral because they kind of dumb, like these really smart people kind of like dumb down like the scientific shit or whatever, and they make it accessible for masses, you know. And usually they find like people that really know what they're talking about and have a different opinion, something like contrary to society's, you know, norms. Which is
CNN,
yeah,
Fox News,
CNN,
InfoWars.
I feel bad for Alex, man. That guy's he's
Do you?
pretty ballsy.
Do you really feel bad for him?
I do and I don't.
He makes $10 million a year. I mean, he's not exactly, you know, a poor bastard, you know?
You're right, he's not. But
Yeah.
I just feel bad. Like, fuck, dude, they shouldn't have taken him down. You know? Like, I understand he's on someone else's platform and they have the right to refuse service to anyone. You know, everyone reserves that right. But at the same time, because you don't like what they're saying, I understand people. It's like you can't take someone's freedom away from saying, no, fuck you, I'm not going to serve you. Because you reserve that right. But at the same time, you know, calling it hate speech, what he was doing, that's not hate speech. It was some of it was probably hyperbole, but at the end of the day, people have that right to say whatever the fuck they want, and they shouldn't be censored because of it or taken down or shut down. You know, this is America. You're supposed to be able to reserve that right as well.
I think the reason they categorized what he was saying as hate speech is because it was categorized as being hateful, not because of what he was saying directly was like hate speech, but more that what he was saying was said in a hateful way, because, you know, the way he talks about the Obamas, or the way he talks, you know, like he says stuff that's pretty offensive. Like if I was President Obama and I heard somebody saying that my wife was a man and they have like conclusive evidence to the, you know, to the sort, I'd be kind of fucking pissed. You know what I mean? So like I can see why he pushes people's buttons. Alex's thing is he pushes people's buttons. Then when they get offended, he's like, what I do? What I do? You know? He'll even go up to people on the street. He's a little bit of a hypocrite in that way. He'll go up to people on the street, get into arguments, and if like they put their like arm on him or whatever, he'll be like, oh, that's assault. That's assault. You assaulted me.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, but he goes up to people like to like politicians and stuff and does the same shit. He'll like put his hand on their shoulder and really like irritate them just to like, and then when they get pissed, he's like, what I do? I'm my freedoms, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's like Cartman a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, he is like like I wish they would make a South Park episode where like Cartman was Alex Jones, because it would be perfect. I don't know why they haven't. You know,
No.
especially by this point since he's gotten so popular. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it just seems like a no-brainer. And I've been saying that for years. There's even this episode of Alex Jones where he's like, literally the headline was Alex Jones is a fat ass, and he was talking about one of his like weight loss supplements. He's like, I used to be big and fat, and he's like, and now look at me, I'm lean and clean and mean machine. You know what I mean? Like he's like not that much skinnier. He's just tan.
Right.
I'm like,
It's
dude,
kind of outrageous, dude.
he's fucking outrageous.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's part of the reason I love him too, is because he's just a total fucking maniac. And if you're listening, Alex, I love you.
He's an entertainer, I think.
He is, totally.
Yeah, he is,
I mean,
for sure.
Yeah, just not to his wife. I guess she wasn't very entertained.
I saw
watched like a Dateline interview or whatever, and
Yeah.
she sounded like that's really how he is. That's who he is when
Wow.
they're alone. Yeah, he's just like.
So that's just who he is as a
Yeah.
person. He's not putting a persona or fabricating some bullshit to you. No, that's him.
That's him.
He's giving you 100%.
Yeah. Have you seen
Yeah.
his son?
No.
His son's a lot like him too. His son's
Really?
like one of his like, you know, he's like 13 and he's already like a correspondent on like the InfoWars.
No
yeah.
way.
Yeah, he's pretty badass actually.
Where is
Yeah.
he now? What is he? Is he still? Is there lobbying going on about?
Dude, Alex Jones'
Apple
shit
and-
is still on YouTube. I just watched his last video on YouTube last night. They just keep uploading it, you know? You can't
Well, other
stop it.
people, I don't think he's doing that.
No, he's not.
Other
and
people
Ron
are.
Gibson's not doing it either. It's some other person.
Yeah.
Like uploading it from his official site.
I think he's
you know?
demonetized and not put into the search.
That's right, yeah.
And YouTube's not going to go after every person that puts up a video of him. Mm-hmm. And
Well, they can't. There's too many videos being uploaded
yeah.
at once. They can't stop all of them. You know what I mean? They can, or they can try to. But, you know, ultimately it's like the way they see it as deplatforming him is enough to be able to take away his audience and transition that to, you know, whoever's actually going to stick is going to go to his website
Well,
anyway.
he's on a bunch of TV, like local TV channels and all that stuff too. From what I understand, like he has a bunch of followers, and I don't think it's going to cause any problems for him as far as having followers by being deplatformed from these big YouTube channels and Vimeo or whatever. You know, all those podcast websites. It's not going to affect him because he already has so many followers. But if it's if it's the small guys that are getting really pissed, they're trying to support him. Be like, hey, what if I say something that's like really controversial, and then all of a sudden, like liberal YouTube people, you know, up in San Francisco, like deplatform me. You know, that's not right. You know, it's supposed to be access for everyone. So why isn't there a completely non-biased space for everyone to say what they want?
You know, I think his most misunderstood form of musician is the one that goes on Alex Jones' show, like Billy Corgan, or, you know, who's the one that Kanye West, you know what I mean? Like any of these guys, I don't know if he's ever been on Alex Jones, but any of these guys who just like have subversive views. Why is it now we're in this time where if you have subversive views, I mean, you know, that fall into that sort of category, you're suddenly looked at as the villain, as opposed to back in the day when you had subversive views, they weren't necessarily looked at as a villain, they were looked at as the subvert, but now like the subversive has become the antithesis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's almost like back in the day, like we all sort of knew that corporate America was the villain, and now somehow corporate America has turned itself into the hero. It's really interesting. You know what I mean?
Well, they're trying to make it seem that way, right?
Yeah, and they're doing a great
Yeah.
fucking job because most people are so censorship pro PC, you know?
Yeah.
They're allowing it and they're facilitating it.
Fuck
you know?
all that, dude.
Yeah, no, I have a friend who goes to a college campus, and she said in one of her classes she called something retarded, and her teacher called her out and said, "You can't say that." She's like, "Aren't you PC?" And she literally had to stop and be like, "What are you talking about?" And then she showed me like her like feminist roommate. And, you know, no offense to all the feminists out there, I love y'all, but you know, like she, you know, said something else like maybe gay or something, and she's like, "Again, you can't say gay." I mean, didn't gay start off meaning happy? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we've even changed the meaning of it. So, and it's like, you know what? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's like if you're not hurting anybody's specific feelings, her roommate wasn't even gay. She just didn't want to hear it.
It's a sensitive age, man. People are so sensitive nowadays. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
But they're
Like,
not. You know,
Well, some of us aren't.
to give context to our audience, Seraphin and I have done a lot of shows around Los Angeles where we've gotten up in people's faces, out on the streets. We busk. That's what we do. That's our thing. And it shocks the hell out of people, but it also reminds them of their humanity a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Because that's how it should be. You know, there is no progress made without doing something a little crazy. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few fucking eggs. You know what I mean?
Dude, people are just so stuck in their ways, man. And they need to step outside. They need to be able to really step outside the box to be able to even be able to do what we do.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know? I mean,
Hey.
it's cool. It's fun.
You. Emoji backpack. Yeah, you.
She's like, where are you? I don't
find
see you.
Hello. Hello. Striped pants. Green shirt.
She's too into her phone.
I know. Social media. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go get her over here. Go bring her. Look at this guy. Shit. She's like slowly like walking away.
Kazakhstan, guys.
She said she's from Kazakhstan. Am I pronouncing that right?
Probably not.
Kazakhstan.
Probably.
My English is fucking garbage. I need to work on my English.
Well, you're just pronouncing a fucking foreign word. But yeah.
So what's up, Eel? You brought a djembe, dude.
I brought a djembe. I thought we were doing music.
Let me see. Bring the djembe.
We had a fucking conversation about fluoride and cats taking over society and all this other shit before we started this. So
dude,
we're not gonna focus on whatever.
Well, fluoride is a trip. Like, I still. Fluoride is a trip, bro.
Fluoride is a trip. The fact that you're a biophysical machine that works off magnetism and energy is a trip.
Yeah.
The fact that we didn't know what structured water is until like 4 or 5 years ago.
Is it because of that Japanese scientist?
Well, a structured water like being proved is really recent.
Okay, no racist intentions with this statement, but the Japanese are into some pretty wacky shit. And they always come up with some pretty crazy ideas. Like, I don't know if you heard about this, but somebody just won a Nobel Peace Prize in Japan for voodoo science. Did you hear about this?
What the heck is voodoo science? I don't even know what that is.
A voodoo doll. Like, where you have, like, it's basically like, I'll try to explain it in the most kind of like realistic scientific way that I can, even though this is a little bit subversive what I'm about to say. But I think it was like the 1930s or 40s, there was this scientist who came up with this concept called alloptic energy. And the whole idea was where you could draw something on a piece of paper, like a diagram with dials, right? Where it's all hand drawn, and you could control physical matter with whatever you've drawn on that piece of paper remotely, right? And so they've continued to study that, and some people believe that, remote viewing, like people being able to actually like the men that stare at goats shit, you know what I mean? Like we have psyops people who can control or even view things remotely, you know what I mean? And it kind of stemmed from this technology. So the whole idea of voodoo science, which predates that by probably thousands of years, is that like you could have a voodoo doll and you could poke holes in it and shit, and whoever you're actually putting that intention towards is the voodoo doll. It causes them physical pain. What? Or you can do the same thing, I think. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a voodoo scientist, but I'm pretty sure.
Someone won a Nobel Peace Prize
won
for that?
Yeah, in Japan. A Japanese scientist, which to me means there's enough validity to say that there's actually like a science beyond an art, but an actual science behind this remote like thing, like literally, like I could, and you could poke it and someone else will feel it. That's fucked up. And I don't know if that's like intention or if that has more to do with some actual science.
I think okay, that whole thing is real. Like you people can sense things happening to others far away, but the fact that someone can control it is what's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's the part that's like, how do you learn to control it? People can meditate and control their chi, and do this stuff, and you can see like this Thai master's fucking hands are putting out 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's putting out energy and it's healing people with it. And they put it,
like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I mean it's true.
I used to have a friend. I'm sorry, because what you were saying was actually really important. But I used to have a friend in 6th grade that was really trying so hard to Kami Ha, and he never could. He was all these he'd be like, come here, and it never worked. And we were like, you fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then one day he did it and blew a hole through someone's stomach, and we never saw him again. No, I'm joking. Oh, look, it's the guy with the sword again. We should ask him to be on our podcast, yeah?
That's a really big sword.
We should. Who's going to call him over?
That's the real deal. He can go to one of those anime like comic shows and fucking win a prize.
Comic-Con, or what is it called?
What is that?
Comic-Con.
It's Comic-Con, but there's other stuff too that just for anime. Just to dress up and people like grade you. Like that's a winning fucking costume.
Hey, dude with the giant sword. Can we ask you a question on our podcast? It'll literally only take 30 seconds. What's up, man?
You use the camera. Use the camera.
What's your name?
Dan.
Alex. Nice to meet you, Dan. I would shake your hand too, but
Yeah, got a big sword going on.
So, who are you?
I'm Cloudstrife from Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to make this costume?
I mean, procrastination included, probably like a month, more or less, give or take.
Are you gonna go to Comic-Con with it?
Oh, I already went to LA Comic Con this weekend with it.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I go to, I've gone to Anime Expo, Comic Con, LA Comic Con, Anime California. Probably gonna go to BlizzCon.
Look at this, you already got a crowd.
Yeah.
Look, it's Patrick.
Thank you.
No one knew who you were.
Everybody else keeps saying SpongeBob and not Patrick.
They keep saying SpongeBob. What the fuck is wrong with people?
Honestly,
How old
what?
are all you people? Like, doesn't really anyone watch SpongeBob?
I mean, I don't remember SpongeBob being pink.
Like, it doesn't make sense, but everybody says.
Yeah.
Like, oh, SpongeBob.
But
I appreciate the effort, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming up to answer my questions about
of course, and
what you're doing.
if you want to see more, because I do a lot of cosplay in different costumes.
Yeah.
My Instagram is at Distrocto, DISTROCTO, and I usually post there. I do have a Facebook too, but like mostly on Instagram, and like just follow me if you want. Find more costumes there.
Oh yeah, man.
Dude, rad costume,
this is
man.
The, LA
Thank you so
Music
much.
Show.
Yeah.
This is our first ever podcast, and you're a
sweet.
part of it. So thanks for being a part of it, man.
Perfect. Oh yeah.
yeah.
By the way, I also am a musician as well, so I've played a couple shows here and there. I can't really say I have anything published yet, but
What do you play?
rhythm guitar and I do vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you sing us a song? If you sing a song, I'll sing a song. I'm a singer too.
Oh God, no, I can't. not in this costume. I'm dying a little bit in here.
Yeah.
And I'm also, a bit shy. So.
Oh shit. Well, I mean, obviously not that shy. Damn.
I mean, yeah, no, I'm compensating for something. Yeah. But definitely, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank
you
you.
too, man. You too.
All right.
Hey, ladies, you know what they say about big swords, right? Big stocks.
Hey, have a good one, guys.
You too, brother.
You too, man.
This is already the best podcast ever.
We're gonna get him to do a show and like hit people with that fucking sword
Yeah.
when we play. We're just gonna fucking go all out.
If you go today and you just take a picture and everything, snap and everything's judging. So
Everybody wants a piece of this guy. She's trying to get him to take some.
Hey, Alex. So
pictures.
you usually go to shows. You
I
usually
go to a lot of shows.
You went. You
I've
hit me
been
up
to
the
at
other
least
day.
1,000 shows in my life.
The last show you went to, which one was it again?
The Distillers.
How was that?
That was great, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, there is no modern punk rock. You know what I mean? That was the first mosh pit, true punk rock mosh pit I've been in a very long time. And we live in this weird, fucked up sort of society where it's almost like if you're a woman and you play rock and roll or hard rock, everybody's like, yeah, like great for you. And it's like back in the day, it didn't matter if you were a woman, or if you were a man, or if you were a fucking squirrel. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing rock and roll, like you just got respect. And now it's like I feel like it's almost like because she's a woman, the singer of the Distillers, Brody, that there's like more of an emphasis on like see, even a woman can do it. It's like, well, no shit. Like Joan Jett, I mean, dude, you go all the way back to the beginning of music, and like the first blues singers, the first like real musicians, a lot of them were women, Some of the most badass hardcore musicians of all time have been women, what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Studio musicians for sure.
What's that one woman from the 80s? She just had the most crazy music videos.
From the 80s,
She was-
Madonna?
No. She
Madonna had
was
some
like a
gnarly-
heavy metal.
She had crazy
It's
videos.
been a long time, and I'm gonna have to look this up. Actually, maybe one of us can look this up. I don't know.
Someone whip out their phone. Dude, Patsy Cline.
Was it Patsy?
No, she didn't have music. I don't think she had music videos at that time. It was black and white. Patsy
it's
Cline
not-
was back in the day, but I'm just bringing
Patsy
her up
Cline is one of the
because
people I was thinking about, but let's.
I love
see.
Patsy Cline, man. Patsy Cline, she's incredible.
Hold on. The world's got to know about this woman I'm about to tell you. 80s metal.
It shouldn't matter if you're a woman or a guy or a squirrel, man. If like, it really.
I can't get over the scroll part, man.
I really don't understand feminism. Like,
When? No, wait.
Like,
was it Wendy O?
we're living in a time where women have all these rights, and we're all supposed to be equal, So it's just ridiculous.
Okay,
to me.
this is a
I
history
don't- I
lesson for
don't
the kids
understand it.
today. If you've never heard of Wendy O, go check her out right fucking now. Her music is pretty cool, but her videos and her image and her attitude are legendary. That is the shit, man. She was like more cool than Lita Ford. She was more cool than,
Rebecca McEntire.
L7, Yeah, more cool than Reba McEntire. I mean, Reba McEntire is pretty cool too.
No, she's cool.
She
I'm
had a
just,
TV show,
I'm
right,
fucking
Reba?
around.
Reba.
Yeah, bro.
Reba.
No. Oh man, look. Okay, so if I could grab rock and roll where it is now, like these pop artists that are trying to almost like exploit the real rock and roll.
You mean like Harry
Into the-
Styles?
I don't even know who that is.
That's a singer of that boy band. He actually, he's pretty good. The kid's talented.
If I could grab this new pop rock and roll, this genre of people, if I could grab all that genre and form a human being and sit that person right next to you, what would you tell that person?
What the fuck is wrong with you, bitch?
What would you tell that person?
I'd say
Eel.
So you're out of the limelight. Get real.
No.
I don't know.
I'd be like, dude, what the fuck is your problem?
I'd say
Like, I don't understand it.
I'd
I
say
don't know.
rock is dead.
I don't know if it's just
I would
me.
say
I don't
bring back
get.
drum solos and guitar solos.
Yeah, dude. Really, I grew up
You
on
know
that.
what? People still dig guitar solos. You wouldn't think they would. And you know what? This is something I've noticed too. There's a lot of people that will categorize rock music as like music for older people, and they're absolutely right, because you go and you see these like aging rock bands, or you see even rock bands that are like, guys in our age, and they're just boring. They're just sitting up there like, just I don't know, strumming their own
They
guitar.
can't move like they used to.
They're not moving. They're not interacting. Like you were right, rappers. The reason rap is so successful is because they're the real rock stars, and they're the only ones that have a real community. They're all helping each other. It's like if
Yeah.
you're like Post Malone, you put out a track, you just put your heart out there, and suddenly you're the biggest rock star in the world. You know what I mean? It's not like it's that easy, but clearly it is. You know what I mean? If you're
Yeah.
talented enough, which he is. He might not be the most talented person ever in everybody's opinion, but he was just talented enough, and he was just there at the right time. And I even feel like right now it would be harder to break out, but not that much harder. I mean, like, for instance, like, this guy Juicy World?
No.
He has a song that sounds a lot like Post Malone, and I'm not the only one who shares that opinion. A lot of people have said they thought it was Post Malone the first time they heard it. He's really good, but he took off instantly, and it was because he just sounded a little bit like Post Malone. You know what I mean?
Do you think that's why he actually made it
Yeah,
though? 'Cause
absolutely.
he sounded
Same
a little
reason
bit
Greta
like
Von
Post Malone?
Fleet took off. I'm sorry, dudes, but you sound just like Led Zeppelin. Fucking admit it. And I'm gonna what? If you ever hear this, you fucking little fucking weasels. Fuck
Damn,
you.
They're gonna come after you, bro.
I don't give a fuck. No, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
I don't know them as people,
I don't know
but
you as people either, but your music's bullshit.
they're probably having a good time playing.
They're probably having a great time playing. You know what? Their
Yeah.
music's not that bad. They just sound just like Zeppelin, and I don't think Zeppelin sucks. And I don't really
Well,
think
Zeppelin
you suck.
fucking
You
ripped
just-
off a bunch of songs too, so
Exactly.
everyone sounds like someone. Post Malone
I'm
sounds
an
like other people
asshole.
too.
So you're the asshole, Alex.
I'm the asshole. Sorry.
No, but I feel you to a certain extent, because when I see people bite off other people that are in the same generation, like, I don't necessarily think that band that you're bringing up right now is in the same generation as Led Zeppelin.
No, they're
'Cause-
like several generations ahead.
Right.
And kids have forgotten what Zeppelin was all about. So to a degree, sure, they're reminding people that Led Zeppelin is the greatest rock and roll band of all time. But you don't remind people that a band is the greatest of all time by going up there and pretending to be them. You go up there and you do your own thing, and then you say, hey, you guys want to hear a Zeppelin song? And then when people are like, who? You play a fucking Zeppelin song.
Yeah,
You
there's
know what I
something
mean?
there's something weird there that this band sounds just like, because when I heard it on the radio, I thought it was Led Zeppelin. I'm
Me
like,
too.
oh shit, they got
I was
back.
at a party the
They-
other day, and I thought it was Zeppelin. I actually had to listen. I was like, this is probably Greta Von Fleet, but it sounds like Zeppelin. I had my friend, Shazam it, and lo and behold, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah, and especially artists that, like you're saying, there's this rapper that pretty much blew up and sounds
Juicy
like
World.
Yeah,
I
and
dig you, Juicy World. I know
the
what
fact
I know
that
what
this
you're
person
going for.
sounds like Post Malone. That kind of pisses me off. Like, dude, Post Malone is like probably the same age as you. Like, why are you, like, you're clearly trying to copy him? Like, I don't know. Maybe some artists are influenced by their own generation, but someone like me that grew up in the '80s, I grew up on Korn, Metallica. So if I play the guitar, I'm gonna sound like pretty much like Kirk Hammett,
Right.
And that's cool. Like,
And if I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna sound just like Lane Staley or M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold or whatever inspired me when I was a teenager.
right. So, but again, I admire bands that take it further, that actually find some sort of creative some sort of creative input in the whole music scene. I respect that because I even find myself doing that. Like when I start messing with pedals, with my DL4 and all my effects on my guitar, I try to make my guitar sound like a synthesizer. There's not many guitar players that do that grew up in my time. Like a lot of guitar players, they sound like the generation before, you know, like
well,
bands
knowing
like Korn
you
from the 80s and
intimately,
the
I can
90s.
say that not very many people are playing guitar like you're playing it at all, if anybody, frankly. And, you know, not to continue to toot our own horn here, but the things that we do as a rock band are pretty unique unto themselves. And Eel's been there. He came out with us to West Hollywood. He saw what it's all about. I mean, this is the essence of rock and roll. People get in fights. Girls are making out with each other, making out with the band. There's even, you know what? It's hell. It's right in the middle of West Hollywood. There's a bunch of guys making out too. And you know what? They can do whatever the hell they want. Punk rock, rock and roll. You know, all love is equal.
I'm not happy
care.
with the new rock music.
No, I'm not happy with the new rock music either.
And I don't know if it's.
Why would people be happy?
I don't know if I'm pissed off if it's because of the way it sounds. And it just sounds fake. Like I don't know if it's me. Like I grew up. I was born in '89, dude. Like I don't know if it's because of my
because it sounds fake as fuck.
It just doesn't sound genuine.
We live in a
dude.
generation where everything is fake as fuck.
It doesn't sound
Everything's
genuine.
fake as fuck. Hillary Clinton's smile's fake as fuck.
I grew up on Metallica records, dude. Like TSOL. You know?
Does Bob Rock still produce?
I don't know if he still does. But anything Bob Rock touched, like Motley Crue, the Black Album by Metallica. Who else did he do? He did. I think he did rap.
He did Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. He did Metallica Black Album. He did Dr. Feelgood. He's done a lot of big albums. I just don't know if he still works. That's not true. He did a Metallica album a couple years ago, and then Rick Rubin did their latest one.
Right. Yeah, Rick Rubin too, man. I really admire these people.
I admire Rick Rubin a lot.
They're all about bringing out that natural creativity from these musicians, as opposed to like recording the drums first, then recording the guitar, then recording. No, like I want you guys to jam and create the music that way, like very natural, you know, in the recording process. And I think a lot of bands, I'm sorry guys, I'm calling you guys cheesy. It sounds cheesy to me, and I don't think they're recording that way. I think it's all. And there's nothing wrong with digital MIDI and all this, but it just sounds fake. Like it doesn't grab me the way a Korn album does, like Untouchables.
I really hope Greta Van Fleet doesn't get pissed that I said you guys suck. I mean, I'm sorry.
Alex is really pissed off.
If I'm the
He's
first
really
person ever to
mad,
say you suck, then you're obviously just not listening.
I mean, I'm mad too, dude. Like, trust me, I'm mad. When I go to these shows, these underground shows, there's a lot of good bands out there. A lot, like the Slop. Shout out to the Slop. They're really fucking good. I mean, they're the closest thing to the White Stripes. And where are the White Stripes right now? I haven't heard their music in a long time.
Well, Jack White's doing a lot of stuff.
Jack White's doing a lot of stuff.
He has a LP making fucking company. And he bought it at Third Man Records. He turned it into they're making LPs for all these bands, and it's exclusively LPs.
Do you know Jack White's never smoked weed?
I believe it, man. He's really fucking deep, though.
He's never done any drugs.
Really?
Yeah. He says that's what gives him the focus to be able to do what he needs to do.
He has a lot of energy.
And sometimes when I hear about that, I'm sort of like, fuck, man, maybe I made a mistake. Because really, like, the past decade has truly seemed like a blur because I smoke so much fucking weed. But at the same time, you know, there's also, like, all these, like, there's Bob Marley, you know what I mean? You can't really argue with, like, you know, but I don't think it really matters. I don't think drugs necessarily, like, change as much about an artist's trajectory as much as it just does with their mind. You know what I mean? Like John Lennon started taking LSD every day for years after the Beatles, you know, or I think during the Beatles, but then proceeded after the Beatles. He was still a pretty prolific artist until he died.
Someone like Frank Zappa is super creative, did all this weird stuff, you know. Like,
did he do drugs? He seems like the kind of guy who wouldn't do drugs, but sort of seems like he would.
I think he might have at one point, but after a while, he never did drugs again. He was really against it, actually, as free as the music was and like how complex and so it's just like he wants to. He's so intelligent by himself, I think, that he have this creative capacity that he feels like probably marijuana or anything else hinders it.
I hope he wasn't one of those hypocrites though who like says like drugs are bad and kind, but I've done everything. You know what I mean? Like, no, because that sucks. That really does suck when people are like, don't do drugs and kind. I've done everything, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that drugs are bad because I've done the drugs. Don't do them. Just take my word for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to find out yourself. And
Yeah.
Drugs affect people differently, you know, like each individually. There's people that could still function, you know, and there's people that can't. I mean, you go down a Skid Row, you see people on the streets, hooked on fucking drugs. And
You-
then
you
there's
know what?
people that
Ask Jason Voorhees to come over and ask him a question. Say, Jason. Jason! Come. Can you...
Oh damn, it is Jason. Lost machete you found. Please
Por
call.
aquí.
You gotta. Dude, it's Jason.
What's up, dude?
I don't think Jason speaks.
Oh, he doesn't
Alex.
talk.
Yeah, Jason doesn't talk.
So I can't ask him any... Okay, we're going to have to use hand signs. Do you like pizza? Cool. Have you ever been to Burning Man? If you were at Burning Man, would you want to dance? Okay, wait. Would you rather dance or murder? Ah, okay. I see. I feel you. Camp Crystal Lake, was it a good experience or pretty shit? A little bit of both. The counselors are pretty hot. Yep, I know. Well, Freddy versus Jason, that was a pretty good movie, huh? You killed it. Yeah, man. Is there gonna be a sequel? Please make a sequel. That movie was so fucking dope.
I really liked your upgrades in the end of the movie. That was cool.
Me too.
I didn't see it.
He won.
I didn't see that movie.
Spoiler alert, he won, I mean, Freddy was just a discombobulated head by the end,
Oh shit!
guy won.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry for anyone who hasn't seen it. I mean, it did come out in 1999. So, well, how's your mom doing? She all right? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It's a sensitive subject. Well,
Did she die or something in the movie?
no, I don't know. I can't really remember. There's somebody. Yeah. You? Was it you? Oh no, it wasn't him. Wait, it was kind of like Psycho. You kind of like became one or something, sort of thing, right? Like her soul possessed your body or something like that. Something. Yeah.
He's like, bro,
I don't know. I don't know. It all gets a little
know
bit.
this.
Well, I like your sign. Can we get a?
What is it? Lock.
He lost his machete,
Nice.
so he can't really do anything until he gets it back. Well, to all of our listeners, if anybody finds it, you know where to send it to. And we thank our guest, Jason Voorhees, for coming on our podcast, the LA Rock and Roll Show. Thank you, Jason. You are the man.
Thanks for
Appreciate
coming on,
you.
bro.
Thanks for coming on.
And happy Halloween.
Get a good education.
Hell yeah.
That's what's up, man.
All right.
People have good costumes here.
People do have good costumes here.
It's like an anime guy. Dude.
I don't know, man. Rock music, dude. I really tried, man, with the Enemy Party. Like, I really want to be able to.
Why don't
throw
you tell
these-
the audience about the Enemy Party? Give them some context.
Well, the Enemy Party was a party I created that was supposed to bring back rock and roll to Hollywood. I know there's a lot of rock bands that play in Hollywood, but what I was trying to do is I was trying to build like some sort of platform where all these bands can just come together and go to a specific place and just really blow it up. Because I used to go to the Knitting Factory back in 2007, 2008, and it was popping. Every time I went to the Knitting Factory on the weekends, it was packed. There was always people outside, especially when I would go to the showdowns. I mean, why'd you move that?
Oh, sorry. Was it?
It was right where it was supposed to be.
I'm sorry. I thought it was.
That's good right there.
It's good. Okay.
Yeah. And it's not easy because I was doing it all on my own. I mean, I had help here and there from obviously you helped me out a little bit, but it's really tough doing things like that on your own, like throwing your own show, filming it, recording the audio, coordinating the band,
That shit's impossible to do
inquiring
on
with
your
the
own.
fucking venue. Yeah, it was really difficult, but I'm still looking forward to it. Like even though it's not cracking right now, it's gonna eventually crack again.
So what we can establish is that the reason rock and roll is suffering is because there's not a very collaborative effort between the parties involved, right? It's
The
too
Knitting Factory
discombobulated.
closed down. I used to go to the Knitting Factory every weekend and closed down. And I remember I drove up to the Knitting Factory one time, and I looked, and it was just an empty fucking
To
street.
give some pretext, I'm gonna have to apologize to all my friends that worked at the Knitting Factory or were very loyal to that venue, but it was on a shoestring for a very long time. And I would go as far as to say that rock music had its exit about 10 years ago when it was at its height. You know how some things blow up to a certain point where they almost become a parody of themselves? You know what I mean? It's almost like rock music had evolved or devolved, however you want to look at it, into the sort of like metalcore, emo-core, Warped Tour, Ozfest
Yeah.
kind of, clown balloon that it ultimately did, and it just popped. and it just literally fell to the floor. And now it's just on the floor, kind of squiggling along. And you know, occasionally you'll get stuff like Greta Van Fleet or the Struts. But again, these bands are so derivative of other bands. Like the Struts are basically Queen, and Greta Van Fleet is basically Zeppelin. And there's probably other examples out there of bands that are just basically someone else. You know what I mean? But
yeah, it's cool. It's cool to mimic some stuff on some of your album stuff, but you got to innovate. But you know, I think another thing to bring up is all the old bands having reality TV shows like Gene Simmons and fucking Ozzy Osbourne.
That killed it too.
Twisted Sister.
You're right.
The guy. They all had these shows.
They took away the seriousness of it.
Yeah,
it went from the Osbournes to the Family Jewels to all the documentary series things on VH1 that sort of looked too far behind the veil, where it was no longer mysterious. The reason people loved Kiss so much in the 70s is because they didn't even know what they looked like, and kids thought that Gene Simmons was a literal demon. You know, so like how you can't replicate that now. And you know, I was talking to somebody about it, and they were saying that like the reason rap is so successful and the reason rock music has no edge and can't even compete is because these guys are talking about some really taboo subject matter. You know what I mean? They're talking about, you know, sex and violence and drugs. And
well, it's more than that. It is way more
than that. I'm not trying to generalize and just say that all rap is about sex, violence, and drugs. There's a lot of social context in there too.
A lot of it,
but there's not really any of that in rock music. There's not any sex, drugs, violence, or social context.
There's also no support, dude. Like,
and there's no support.
I hit up so many people on social media. Okay, so for example, Guru Doug, shout out. Guru Doug is so fucking talented. He's one of the most talented people I know, and this guy is really good at producing, recording. He mixes, and he collaborates with dope artists. Dude, that hip hop community, like the underground hip hop community, is so supportive. The rock and roll scene is not at all. It's not fucking supportive. I've hit up so many people. They don't give a like. Everyone's doing their own thing, and no one gives a fuck about each other. Like, it's such an egocentric fucking scene. I don't like it. When I grew up, it wasn't like that. It was not. The rock and roll scene wasn't like that when I was growing up. It really
big
wasn't.
Personalities, though, you know, it's like
people were fucking cool. People were talking to each other. Like, it was a part. People would throw parties.
Well, it's pretty
now
safe.
It's become this weird thing where there's a huge disconnect between each other, like in the scene. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, all these people I know, like, it's so fucking. It's just really weird. The rock and roll scene's fucking weird, bro. I think it's. I mean, you just told me the other day you went to the Viper Room and you went in and people were looking at you like, who the fuck is this guy? It's like you go to a hip hop show. It's not like that. Mm-hmm. You don't get that vibe. I mean, I played a hip hop show with Guru Doug and Carlos. When I walked in, people were coming up to me like, "Oh, dude, that's fucking tight. You brought a guitar." Like, people were giving me love. Well, and I played a hip hop show, and I'm a guitar player. Like, there's so much love in the hip hop community.
Well, I'll tell you what, to give you context to that, being at the Viper Room, the reason I was getting those kinds of looks is because every show I've been to since I was 13 years old, I've been most of the time one of the youngest people there, always, and that's never changed. Every rock and roll show I've ever gone to, I'm almost 10 or 20 years younger than everyone else there, except for the punk rock shows and hardcore, emo, screamo, whatever shows I went to about 10 years ago, but that scene's gone. So if you just want to like talk about old school rock bands, like for instance, I went to Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie recently, same deal.
The vibes were the same?
Well, I'm saying there was not anybody like younger than 40, except for me and my friend. You know what I mean? Like, and that's
so. This vibe. Do you mind that I bring this up? That this happened to you at the Viper Room?
No, I don't mind. You can bring up whatever you want.
Okay, so did that vibe happen to you when you went to Coachella the last time?
Fuck no, because everyone's 10 years younger than me.
Okay, so it's this weird generation, like past generation. Is that? Well, that's because you're not the only one. I get the same vibe. Like, sometimes I go to these gigs and it's just really.
Well, I'll tell you what, people in our age group were not captured by the imagination with rock music, I think the same way you and I were. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't have that chance to be able to have their imaginations captured again, because young people our age, older people, love the stuff we do, but that's, I think, has a lot less to do with the fact we're even playing rock music and the fact we're just playing what we play, that we're us, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of bands kind of tend to forget that, too, that they think it's all about the music, but they forget it's also about the live performance. It's about the way you look. It's a stage show. You know, it's Slipknot. Like,
I don't know what it is, dude. Like, I go to these rock shows, people are standing there, and the whole thing looks cheesy. It looks fucking cheesy, bro. It's hard for me to respect something when it's so shallow and there's no profoundness. Like, I go there and it just looks so lame. Like, I go to a hip hop show, like, I see, shout out to Scarlord. I see Scar-Lord.
Shout out to Scar-Lord.
Scar-Lord shows
Hell yeah.
look fucking popping. People are jumping. People are doing the Wall of Death.
Yeah.
Who's doing the Wall of Death nowadays?
Last Wall of Death I saw was at Sounds of the Underground 2006. It was Lamb of God,
When I was
Chimera,
15 years old.
Guar. My God. And when I was there, Lamb of God asked the hardcore kids to go to one side and the metal kids to go to the other side and just slam into each other as hard as they fucking could, and it was brutal. It was
Well, you know who's
brutality.
doing that now?
Who?
A hip hop artist from Europe is
Really?
doing that.
Scar-Lord?
Scar-Lord is
Oh, right,
doing
right,
that.
yeah.
You know, and a real shout out to the Slop. I really, really dig that vibe, man. 2-piece band, rocking the fuck out, recording albums and demos with like two microphones, just hitting record. Like the way they record is so raw, and I like that. I miss that. That's why when I see underground bands do that, I have more respect for those bands and these bands that go into the multi-million-dollar studios, and I hear it on the radio and it just sounds so fake, dude. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just too punk rock for that. You know, maybe just me as a person, I'm just too street punk for that. You know, maybe.
Well,
It's hard for me to find love for it. You know, like I miss it, man. I want to understand. I try my best to understand. Like when you invite me to these shows, I try to, I give it a shot, but I don't know, man. I don't know what's up with that scene. You know, there's.
Well, the last show I remember you and I went to was Purity Ring doing a DJ set, and that was awful.
I'll never understand a show. I'll never understand a
And
show
I like
like
Purity
that.
Ring, don't get me wrong.
How much were the tickets?
Shout out to Purity Ring, for being good EDM artists. Never do a DJ set again. You guys suck doing that. Sorry, but
I always find that weird that like people like these European like EDM like kind of bands, but like they go and do DJ sets. Like the guy from Radiohead does a DJ set at the Boiler Room. Anyone you can think of, and they do these. Sometimes it's good, but it's like, why do you have that skill? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just like playing records.
I don't really understand why big artists do DJ sets either, because usually they're not as good as other DJs. They just like, it's like a playlist they put together, and it's like, if you're gonna DJ, actually like DJ. Like I've seen Seraphin DJ, and he's actually really good. He can DJ as well as he can play guitar because he understands what it takes to actually DJ, not just go up there and like press play and go. You know, like
you use Serato, right? Something like that.
I mean, I've done vinyl Serato and CDJs. I look up to DJs like Diplo and Skrillex because it's not even about DJing. Like
They create it.
It's not even about that. Like it's not even
have
about
energy.
mixing.
Yeah.
It's about the vibe, the experience,
Yeah.
the crowd. Like we're throwing a party. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's what these bands don't do that. When I went to the Viper Room, I mean, the bands weren't doing that. The bands that are doing this nowadays, they're not doing that. Like look, man, maybe there's bands that show up at Coachella and they do that. They really get the crowd pumped up, but I've never been to Coachella, so I can't really. I mean,
there are.
You
There's definitely bands that do that. In fact, I think
because every time you go to Coachella, you always bring up like A$AP Rocky, Kanye West. I mean, what bands are doing what they're doing?
like rock bands.
Yeah, like because every time you bring up like the good shit about Coachella, you bring up the hip hop bands or like the hip hop artists. You don't bring up the bands that much. So are there bands that are doing cool shit?
This is kind of a bad rabbit hole because there's a lot of bands I really love that have played Coachella, and I don't want to start talking shit on Radiohead, Guns N' Roses.
We're not talking. We're not trying to talk
maybe
shit
not
here.
talk shit, but okay.
Because look, maybe they're gonna tune into this, and they could get something out of it. Maybe you and I are gonna be able to give something to the scene that will help the scene because no one's criticizing it. Someone has to fucking talk about this shit.
I'm gonna tread very carefully here.
Yeah, and be careful. but look,
I love
His eyes
old
glittering.
school rock and roll. I love AC/DC. I love Guns N' Roses. I love Radiohead. I've seen all three of you at Coachella, and you were all so boring. I'm so sorry, but God, you were all so boring.
Do you want to put this
and
in
we
real
love
quick?
you. I
we love
love
you.
Radiohead records. I grew
let-
up listening to Radiohead.
Dude.
I grew up listening to most bands that go to the Coachella.
You know what pissed me off? And my other drummer friends, there was two drummers for that show at Coachella and that whole season. And the second drummer, like they wouldn't put him through the real fucking overheads. You know, like no one heard the second drummer doing crazy shit on top of everything. He was just there to hype up the band so the band's having fun, but the crowd can hear the album the way it was recorded. You know, but I want to see the fucking two drummers and have it be a crazy like new song for this live show every time. That'd be awesome. I want to see something different. But
You know who are
they just want to make the crowds happy that just know the songs on the radio. You know.
The two best bands I've seen at Coachella were Rancid, because Rancid has been consistent. They've never stopped being badass. You know what I mean? Like, they just still are punk rock. They're just fundamentally, foundationally punk rock. And there were a bunch of people that were there to see them. I'd never seen people with mohawks and people with, you know, like tattoos and piercings like that at Coachella. That was really cool. And the other band has slipped my mind.
The
Must not
vibe
been that great.
seems cool. Like the people that go to Coachella, it seems like it's a good vibe. You know,
Right.
I've never been, so I can't really speak on behalf of the vibe. But based on what you've said, it seems like you've gone and you've had a good time. You know.
Oh yeah. Coachella is the best music festival in Southern California for sure. Beach Goth is great too.
Yeah.
You know, so are all the Insomniac events. But again, that's just, you know, that's the modern.
I'm far out.
Woodstock.
I don't know what it's like to go
Do
to
you know
those
what
events.
the thing about Coachella is really cool to me is that people are coming out from other countries to come to it. You know?
Oh, yeah.
I was next to like two couples from Mexico, and they're giving me tequila at a show. Like, and there was a lot of people coming from like Europe or something. These fucking models, just like, and they buy tickets. They come out for the weekend. Some of them camp. Some of them just like stay in their hotels and shit. But it's that big of a deal, you know. There's all this other like VIP stuff that nobody gets access to, but it's a multi-level thing, you know. I think there's like, how many people go there?
It's 100,000 people both weekends, so 200,000 people
Yeah,
every year.
I think some of the days it's even more, and there's a lot of people hanging out in the camping spot. And I saw a band play like literally the TV, or the camping little stage. There's only 20 people like watching them. I was one of them. And the next year, the year after, Bad Not Good, they played one of the bigger stages during the day. So they just like multiplied their audience by like 100 times almost.
Yeah.
They had people watching them, you know. And that's the thing about Coachella, you know, like it has so many eyes on you. So all these bands that already had a lot of viewership, they get even more after it. And now I think the last few years it's the other way around, which is like they're bringing in people with a lot of people that already know them, and they're just giving people like kind of what they want in a way.
It is the other way around. You're right. I mean, I actually remember the other band I was going to talk about this past year. I saw Eminem, and I watched about an hour of Eminem set. He probably played for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I decided to go watch A Perfect Circle in the middle of his set.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, there were literally like 50 people there. There were like 100,000 people watching Eminem and 50 people watching A Perfect Circle. And I don't know if people don't realize that, you know, Maynard James Keenan, the singer of Tool, is the singer, and that they have like the, you know, guitar player from the Smashing Pumpkins and, you know, the bass player from Marilyn Manson. But it's a super band. They're awesome, and they were amazing, dude. I was standing there watching them, totally hypnotized, but looking around just totally like, how is this even possible that there's only 50 people here? That was a true, real sign to me that it's like the power consolidation at things like this are making it unfavorable to such a degree that like even like Beyonce, she literally demanded, I heard, I don't know if this is true, and if it's not true, I'm sorry, Beyonce, you know, I really, really am, but that every other stage was closed down, so everyone was forced to watch her. And I've never heard about that happening at any other music festival in general or at Coachella. It sounded a little bit like, you're going to force us to watch you?
Most of the time, the last show,
you're going to
there's
force
two.
us to not have a choice between something else and you? And that to me just seemed a little bit like, you know, they even closed down the Do Lab. They even closed down the EDM stage, so everyone was forced to watch her. And I'm sorry, but I did not really enjoy that performance. I thought it was too much posturing. I know I see your eyes widening because I'm supposed to enjoy it, and I'm so sorry for not enjoying it. I swear I'm not a sexist or a bigot or a Republican, but I just thought Eminem and The Weeknd were better.
That's what she
Sorry,
wants to
not
do.
sorry.
It seems. She wants
Oh my
to surprise the shit out of people. She wants to like she did that Super Bowl show. You know, like I think that's what she's trying to do from now on, is to be very controversial and seem like she's making a big statement, right? She just has to in order to keep herself relevant. You know.
I think she should start a super band with Caitlyn Jenner and I don't know, just like, who are the other people you can't talk shit about without getting in a lot of trouble? You know, like,
Oh my god!
let's think. Okay, so it'd be Caitlyn Jenner on vocals, Beyonce on guitar.
Well, Caitlyn Jenner, you should be talking shit about. She killed the person. Killed someone.
She killed someone.
She
killed someone on the PCH. She pushed someone out into oncoming traffic and killed them. I mean, South Park did a really, really good job of like riffing this whole subject pretty like specifically.
Yeah.
Like literally, like in the episode, she would like be pulling up to places and just run someone over, and then someone would get in the car and just like, buckle up, buckaroo. You know, like. And, you know, and their whole thing was like Kyle got in a lot of trouble for not thinking that she was a beautiful flower or whatever. He just said something like, I don't think Caitlyn Jenner is a hero. And then people got super insulted and he had to kind of backtrack and be like, listen, I didn't say that she wasn't a hero. I said she's not my hero. Yeah. And people were still equally offended, you know, because she's a graceful butterfly flying against the wind. She's so brave, all that. And you know what? I guess we can talk about this pretty openly. Joe Rogan's talked about this very same thing too, that it's like, does it make you brave just because you have a sex change operation? I think that actually certainly makes you brave in the context of society, that you're embracing who you really are. But does it make you a like hero to society? I'm not quite sure.
Well, it gets you a lot of propaganda, you know, or
right.
Not propaganda, but like you get all this media attention because that family is already so big because of their reality TV show.
I mean, she's also a Republican. And I'm saying I'm being politically correct about this. Yeah. She's also a Republican who's against gay marriage. How can you be a transsexual individual who's against gay marriage?
It's
the
just
fuck is wrong with you? You know, like, my God.
There's all kinds of inconsistencies and idiosyncrasies or whatever you call them. You know, like politics. It's so much of the day you were born and your surrounding, people. I think, like back in the day, a long time ago, like Nietzsche was writing all these philosophical books, and he wrote a lot about like how women aren't the same as men and stuff like that. But like now, people look at it, they really read his books, and it's really important philosophy, but they overlook that stuff because that was just like what it was during the times,
Well, it's a very hotbed debate right now if there's a difference between men and women. A lot of people think that there are no differences between men and women, that we are all biologically the same, and that because of that thing, they believe that there are so many genders that it's basically like countless. There are countless genders.
Yeah.
Which sort of, I'm going to be careful here because I really this is something that is truly hotbed, and I don't want to actually like offend anybody's sensibilities here, but when you start having so many genders that there's no longer a way to categorize those genders, to the point where it's literally like it's almost like, that's like saying I'm an alien pod person. That's my chosen identity.
You have the right to.
And you have the right to say that. But at the same time,
yeah, man,
you have the right to say or do anything. And you know what? I could almost even respect that. I could even almost go as far as to say it's kind of punk rock to be able to identify yourself as anything. But you know what it is? It's the enforcement end of it. It's basically like me going, I'm an alien pod person. Are you proud? Are you happy? Do you accept me? and people have to say yes. It's like if you say I'm an alien pod person, but you don't accept me, you're a bigot. And that's where it gets a little bit like, okay, I don't know about that because I'm not an alien pod person. I'm a man. You know what I mean?
It's like either way, at the end of the day, like the government just wants you to pay your taxes. It's like,
hey, skeleton girl,
you can be defined as whatever you want. It's just the government doesn't really care. You can change the laws, but there's no escaping. If you want to live in society, you have to just like follow society's rules. So if society's rules change and you can't like call someone a he or she or whatever, people are going to follow it to the most extent, right? But it's just,
you know what? I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to embrace this new world we're in, and I'm going to identify myself as an alien pod person, singing Hare Krishna, spitting nickels. And if you disagree with me, you're a fucking bigot. Okay?
What do you mean?
You missed
what do you
out.
mean by that?
I mean by that, we were talking about, how people are saying in this sort of new political climate that there are no longer just two genders, but an infinite amount of genders. And again, like I even had to start off by being really, really careful with this. But what I was kind of saying is it's almost, if you think about it philosophically, almost kind of punk rock to be able to identify yourself as literally anything and have people agree with that.
Yeah, but don't force me.
No, but that's the part I disagree with is literally the enforcement of it. So it's like if I was to go around and say I'm an alien pod person, like do you agree with this? And then if someone's like, no, then that actually gives me literally the right now to say, well, you're a bigot. Because I am.
Right. Because you're using the term correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? Maybe if you really want to get super, esoteric about it, anything can be argued with anything, because we put labels on things and identify them that way. But just because you call something something doesn't mean that it's actually something. And the only reason things are established is because of like what Jordan Peterson said, and it's consensus. We all have a consensus that this is a table, and that this is a hat, and that this is tea, and that this is a microphone. But if I want to say that this is a shmoo, this is a roo, this is a two, and this is a fuck you, I could. And right now,
that's cool, bro.
And we're in this weird time where it's almost like,
don't tell me I have to start calling it what you call it.
No, I hear that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's what's kind of interesting about it, is if I had enough influence, then suddenly this is a fuck you and a roo and a two and a poo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then not only that, you're gonna get. What's happening now is if I don't call that, you get offended. What? Delusional, bro. You're gonna get mad at me because I'm not calling something how you call it.
Yeah, but
when conventionally we're not supposed to be calling.
What if I believe in it so much?
You know?
No, that's a poo.
And if you call it a two,
it's a fucking poo.
And if you call it a poo, you get mad because I'm not calling.
You're
it
triggering
poo.
me right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't know, man. I disagree.
I'm triggered.
With that whole, I mean, you can. I'm not a big believer that I should.
I'm gonna scream into my fuck. My fuck you.
Dude, people are allowed to do whatever they want. It's a free country. You have your beliefs.
It's a free world.
It's a free world, and you know what? Do and say what you want, but don't force me to fucking call it or do what you do. It
actually does create a amount of confusion though when things lose their labels, because at that point, if you can't actually call something by its given name societally, then nothing means anything, and we're literally in we're back to the basics. We're in a world of complete chaos and infinite change, which is what the world is. But if you can't find a little bit of foundation and grounding in this just mess of reality, then you're caught up in it. You know what I mean? And that's the point. That's why we call things things. That's why we continue to discover and actually try to have real conversations, because if we just all sort of decided that things are as we subjectively see them, then there would be no progress made with anything. We'd literally still be like slinging shit at each other. Right. And we wouldn't even call it that. We'd just call it maca.
That's like this, man. For sure. For
Right.
there's no getting around it, because everything in society is moving faster, like at a really fast speed. Like language is going to change. We already use acronyms and turn them into words like LOL and this and that, and it's like a code.
Did you say language is not going to change, or it is?
No, it's going to change very
it is gonna
fast.
change.
It's going to change so
is.
fast that it's not going to be just an annoyance. It's like people are not going to be able to talk to each other.
you're still gonna have literate people.
Yeah. No,
you know what though? Isn't it safe to say again, and not to get too conspiratorial, that this is still all part of some plot? That you could very well say that the reason people are being sort of said or told to speak a certain way or to be a certain way is because, remember the way like you've seen people speak in like old movies or whatever, even like as far as like the 1930s, 40s, like old film noir, or even further back like period pieces, right? Like everyone spoke so intellectually. It was either you knew how to speak hyper intellectually or you didn't know how to read or write at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people still, even who didn't know how to read or write, still could speak well enough. It's almost like the people who didn't know how to read and write spoke about as well as we probably speak. You know what I mean? Which is still pretty damn good. But the people who could really, really write and speak were the ones that sort of held that foundational knowledge that we sort of established consensually as being real big ideas from the get-go. And those ideas haven't changed. You know what I mean? Like the biggest words we use, the biggest ideas we've had have been the same since the dawn of antiquity. They just have sort of been pushed to the wayside because big ideas and big think are no longer sexy. Even if you look back at film noir, the reason people still used big words and had big conversations is because people fancied conversation. That was actually part of our dynamic. Now, we don't have much use for conversation except out of a podcast, which is really sad that this is how we actually have to have real conversations, is to have fake conversations. This isn't even a real conversation. We're not here having a real conversation. This is all a made-up, fake believe thing right now, you know what I mean? And we're all like on the spot. This isn't even a natural conversation. There's no way to have a natural conversation this way when you know you're being filmed. Unless I guess you're being filmed 24/7, which we kind of are. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're always being, there's always people watching you and I think it's-
Listening. So what is fake and what is real now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, really, even if it's unconscious, even if we know we're being filmed or listened to or we're on security cameras or whatever, it makes you act a little bit differently, right? Like a little bit differently. So if
I
we
don't know, man.
we're-
I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm an angry person, you know.
Yeah. You
I'm-
don't get to show it. Yeah. You don't get to show it sometimes.
I show it in class. When I'm in class
Yeah.
and my teacher says something, I speak up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't stay quiet. Like, if my teacher starts bringing up Donald Trump, I'll speak up. Like, okay, so what about Donald Trump? You know? Because so many people just are so quick to talk shit, and people aren't quick to analyze what they're about to say.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm actually currently trying to work on that, because I don't want to just be running on emotion. Like, I really want to be able to use my logos. Like, I want to be able to really think things through and then speak. You know, because most people don't do that. They're just like, oh, I saw emotion. Oh, fuck Donald Trump. Fuck that. It's like, dude, stop. Really analyze the situation.
Yeah.
You know, like, why do you hate Donald Trump? Have you analyzed yourself? Is it just because he wants to build a wall?
You know,
it's like, dude, stop. Just like really
It
think.
doesn't
for a little
represent
bit.
people, though. You know, this is the thing. It's
He
like,
represents a lot of people.
he
though.
doesn't represent the majority, though.
I wouldn't say that.
I don't
wouldn't
know.
go as far as to say he doesn't. Actually, I would go as far as to say he does represent the majority of his core audience.
Yeah.
But maybe that doesn't necessarily represent the majority of humanity. And beyond that, I can see why people have such direct beef with him, because it's, you know, if it's not one thing, it's another, is kind of the idea. If it's not immigration, then maybe it's, you know, maybe it's trade. And if it's not trade, then maybe it's, you know, foreign policy. And if it's not even that, maybe it's just his personality. Because for me, you know, I grew up with a single mom. I grew up around a lot of women.
Mm-hmm.
I get along with women. I hardly like guys. I mean, I like you guys, but that's because you guys are compassionate. You're cool dudes, you know what I mean? And that's very uncommon. But his personality type is so the antithesis of what I've ever found. It's almost like he is the representative of what I've found almost offensive in male behavior. So for me, on a personal level, I'm just kind of like, I don't know if we would necessarily get off very well as human beings one-on-one, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've never met him.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You
I've
don't
never
know
been able to have a
him.
conversation with him. So I don't even know if this is the real him. Right now,
Right.
I don't even know if this is the real me. I don't even know if you know what I mean? I don't even know if I'm speaking this way because we're being interviewed or because, you
Yeah.
know, or because this is how I actually feel.
People
How
have
do we
said
even
that,
know
though.
what our real opinions are anyway.
I know
You
what my
I mean?
real opinions are, and I'm saying them right now.
Hang on, though. How do you
I'm
know?
not quick
How do you
to
know
say,
that that's
I'm not quick to say fuck Donald Trump. I'm not quick to say, oh, it's all about Hillary Clinton. You know, it's.
Well, yeah,
I think
but I
people
mean,
are delusional.
It doesn't need to be one or the other. I literally just
It
like,
doesn't
was
have to
saying
be.
earlier
It
on in this
literally-
conversation that
yeah.
Hillary Clinton is fake as fuck.
Well, hold on.
You know what I mean?
That's your opinion, but what I'm saying is, people need to step back. Like, instead of being quick to be like, okay, Donald Trump, or like, oh, okay, I'm fucking Democrat. Why don't you just step back and analyze both parties, analyze your government, analyze society, and then make a decision.
Yeah.
People think, no, it's either left or right. You know, there's no middle, or, you know what I mean? It's like, fuck all
Left
that.
or right or Bernie?
Now, I bring it up all the time when people talk about Trump. It's
Dude,
like, okay, it's
fuck
like
socialism.
you know,
I
like-
would not be able to live in socialism. I wouldn't be able to. My dad fucking left Cuba when he was like, I think in his 20s, and he got arrested because he had an American flag during Fidel Castro's regime. That's fucking crazy. That's like if I had a California flag and not an American flag, and I got fucking arrested.
yeah.
It would be the exact same thing. If California flags were to be illegal, and for somehow someone were to call 911, hey, this guy has a California flag, and you got arrested for it. How ridiculous does that sound? That's how Cuba was.
Yeah.
People would get arrested if you had contraband, which could be anything imported from United States, from Europe, specific countries, most countries actually. If it's not from Russia, you'd fucking go to prison. That's a socialist country,
for argument's
bro.
sake. For argument's sake, isn't it safe to say that there are different levels, different
Yes.
forms of socialism?
Of course,
you can
but-
argue that there's a huge difference between Cuba, Soviet-influenced socialism,
Right.
and Eastern European Soviet influenced socialism, you know, the stuff you find in Sweden, Finland, Norway, so on and so forth, and what you find in Cuba and in Iran and in North Korea. It's a lot different, you know what I mean? And what Bernie Sanders was promoting, generally speaking, because you know what, we can get into details about what socialism would do on a micro level all day, but I think it's pretty like universally accepted among everybody, left and right, that if everybody had universal health care and if everybody had free public education, we would live in a much more functional society. Because anyone who's ever had to pay off student loans or anybody that's ever had to pay for hospital bills realizes that this is a giant fucking scam, that we live in a corporate driven society where no one's real best interests are accounted for except for the people that are somehow in the corporate structure. It's almost like if you survive in this country, you're expected to become a cog in that machine, or you're expected to be someone like us, maybe who's entertaining the people in the corporate cog, you know what I mean?
Right.
But you're
Well,
expected to be a participant somehow in it, and that's where it really gets fucked. Because with socialism or whatever sort of form of, you know, social democracy that Bernie Sanders was talking about, to me it seemed like that was just trying to redistribute wealth in a way that almost wouldn't be noticed by the common man, but would certainly be noticed on a bigger level. Because if, you know, for instance, corporate taxation became more standardized and there was, you know, much more federal regulations and taxation on these major corporations, you know who would suffer? Major corporations, not their shareholders, not the environment, literally just the richest people in the world, and they would lose probably just a percentage of their wealth every year.
Can I bring this up, man? Like, are you saying corporate, but you know what it really is? It's debt driven. It's that you're going to have this debt, you're going to take this debt out, and it's going to grow money over time. You're going to take it out for student loans, you're going to take it out for a house, and then we compounded it with the stock market. We thought that debt was going to bring in a lot of money, like the way they hit it into those like disaster fucking toxic assets, and they put it into all these things. So everything is so debt driven, and they think that debt is going to turn into a value that's going to grow over time. And that's with money, and it's with stocks, and it's with these businesses, it's corporations. It's not that. It's that the system you live in every country in the world is based off this idea that we're going to grow exponentially. And right now we don't have a technology that's going to actually move that much value into our into the world, into society. Maybe, you know, solar energy that produces all these new things is going to create that kind of growth. But right now, everyone's pissed off because they're in debt.
You know, that's really interesting.
The corporations
you say that.
are in debt too.
I've never thought about it that way, that debt is valuable, that debt has value to some. Because, well, I
growth
heard,
value.
I mean, I heard this thing recently. This guy was talking about the banking system, and I was unfamiliar with this. I don't know if our audience is aware. I don't know if you guys are aware. But that if somebody, and I'll use a kind of, you know, a small example, but if somebody has $1,000 in debt, that means that somebody else has $1,000 in their bank account. And that's how it works. If somebody has $1 billion in their bank account, to account for that $1 billion, there has to be $1 billion in debt to be able to create those checks and balances.
In theory, that's the way it's supposed to work.
That's not how it's supposed to work, because if you're continuously creating a society that's in debt, I mean, that's how it's supposed to work in the
It's
current
supposed
power
to work.
structure
Like
we are.
if, okay, so I'm the bank. I have $1,000,
Right.
and you want me to lend you $1,000. So I take
Right.
my $1,000 out of my wallet and I give it to you.
Right.
And then I tell you, okay, when you pay me in a month from now, you're giving me $1,500.
Right. And the
But
only
then the
way
problem
to do
is,
that,
you're not paying me back. Where where am I gonna? I'm in debt.
Well, I'll tell you what.
You took my money.
That's when you
You're not paying me back.
That's when you go to the higher ups at the Federal Reserve and they print you more money. Once that new money is created and put into circulation, then suddenly you are no longer in debt, but you are still owed by the people that you loan the money to. So they're
Well,
in debt. The banks don't stay in debt. The banks have enough money or whatever.
No,
But now the
is.
banks, but
I'm
now
sorry,
the
I
banks
gotta- I
on.
gotta-
So if that
no.
happens, the banks are still in debt, though.
He's completely incorrect. Actually, you're
The
completely
banks
incorrect.
are still
I'm
in
explaining
debt,
why.
Alex.
No, you're completely incorrect because
In debt to who? In
they-
debt to the government? In
No,
debt
no,
to
no.
themselves? Like,
they're creating debt. They're letting people borrow money at a higher percentage of what they have. That's why there's an issue. That's always been like that. So what the problem is, right? Like they get $100,000, not even printed. They get it put into their accounts by the government, and they put it into these things that create interest from U.S. bonds. So they're getting trillions of dollars from that. They got like $7 trillion before 2008, just through that from the 90s to there. And so they're getting this value from U.S. bonds that it's coming out of nowhere. It's not being actually created. And they're letting people borrow. The debt they give out is like 10 times more than what they have. It's at least 10 times. People are saying that actually 99% of our money in the U.S. is actually just printed debt or digital
Right.
debt.
but
It's
that
digital
wouldn't be
debt.
the bank in debt. That would be putting people into perpetual debt. Because
Yeah.
the banks, if they're not actually working with anything real or tangible, but they're sort of instilling this system upon people and saying that it is real and that it is tangible, then clearly if a bank was really to have to check its own checks and balances, like
Yeah.
if, for instance, everybody went to a bank at once and tried to take their money out, they wouldn't have that money, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So who's the
it's-
one who's in debt? Is it the people who are actually a part of that system, or is it the people that they cater to who rely on the system? You
Dude,
know what I
it's
mean?
it's a very simple concept. A lot of people are borrowing money from banks and they're not paying them back.
Well, that's
So-
how it works, though. That's every single country in the world. That's how it works. That's how society works. You know what I'm saying? There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
It's the reason why America does so well is that we can let people borrow like 99% of our money is digital debt and this bank thing. Other countries can do like 95. This is why America, because we are the standard U.S. World currency, pretty much.
Because we let people borrow money.
Well, there is one way to get out of it, and that's decentralization of everything, and that's kind of what's happening right now.
Well, I don't think there's a way to get out of
That
it.
sounds gnarly.
No,
It's already what's happening. I mean,
I don't think there's a way to get out of this. The way that this works, this currency thing works.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the only reason we even rely on currency is because we have trust in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And digital currencies, cryptocurrencies have finite amounts. Although now there's an infinite amount of cryptocurrencies. So in that same way, it's like when you create a finite supply and then create an infinite supply of something finite, is it still really actually finite? But it depends what people are going to rely on. If it becomes ubiquitous, like if it becomes one thing, like Bitcoin, there is only a finite amount. If people start using multiple forms of currency, which I think is going to happen, I think it's going to create this sort of decentralized form of exchange where you put value on things, right? We all put a
Yeah.
certain value on things,
Right.
and we're going to work more communally to sort of exchange things as opposed to this giant macro effect where we allow people way out of our own control to make those kinds of decisions for us, to decide what has value and what doesn't. You know what I mean? I think that's
Yeah.
actually going to be more truly, in the hands of the people to decide what's valuable to them and what's not. And right now, if the US dollar is only valued at 4 cents to a dollar of what it's actually valued to the Fed, you know what I mean? If you went to the Fed and you tried to give them everything you have in exchange for what they would give you for it, they'd give you 4 cents to a dollar. That's how much it's worth to them. But it's still worth $1 to us. That's the fucked up part about it, is that they put so little value on it, we put so much value on it. Kind of makes me feel like a fucking chump. You know what I mean? It kind of makes me feel like I'm being really like kind of stupid by putting value on something that essentially to whoever
Yeah.
is actually giving it to me is valueless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like being in like a bad relationship where you think that like, you think you're getting it all, but they're only giving you 4% of what they actually like would ideally give like, a partner they really loved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an
How
essential
fucked would that be?
concept,
How
dude.
happy would you be being in a marriage where you're getting 4% of someone's attention and love and time? See, when you put it in that context, it makes you feel really fucking bad, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
pretty much.
Like, and if that's our money system, that's literally everything we rely on for stability in every facet of our lives. That's a pretty fucked system. So I'm not saying cryptocurrency is a shoo-in, but it seems right now to be, logically speaking, the more sound development in this kind of whirlwind of cluster fuckness that we're in.
A lot of people are saying it's going to be the technology behind how we store and ledger money in the
Blockchain.
stock market.
Yeah.
and all that is it's going to work. It's going to be integrated. It's going to work, but the idea of we're creating value today and we have more borrowed against, we don't know what's going to happen that's going to create that value one day. That's a thing that I don't think we're going to get around. Every country in the world is over withdrawn pretty much.
We don't. Even if Bitcoin does not,
they've given
more
more
debt-
money from their pocket than they have themselves.
More debt than money has. Like there's more debt now than money that's ever existed in the history of the world.
Right, because it's like if you ask me, hey, can I borrow $1,000 and I only have 500, and I say, okay, well, here's an imaginary extra 500 I'm going to give you. When in reality, I don't have that. I have nothing to back that up.
Well, if you were the Fed, you could do that.
Yeah.
And if you're a bank, you could especially do that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is they've printed X amount of fucking dollars, and there's not enough gold to back that up.
I mean, we got off the gold standard during the Nixon administration. Actually, we may have gotten off the gold standard even earlier than that. I'm not sure if we were taken off the gold standard during Woodrow Wilson's presidency.
So there's not enough gold to back up the dollar.
There's not enough gold to back up the dollar. There's not nearly enough gold to back up. There's no
it's not
physical
necessary either.
asset that could back up
I don't think it's necessary.
the dollar.
I mean, the idea of how currency is going to work and how we're going to grow this fast was because you can make money move around so quick.
Well,
and this fake money, this fake currency thing has really it's worked to a large extent. The thing is, like, here we are.
it's worked for some, not worked for all. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Is that, and that's why. I mean, it's like the sort of stuff that Bernie Sanders says, and I'm only going to talk about this once more because I don't want to get too Bernie 2020, but Bernie 2020. He was saying that the top 1% of the 1% own 50% of all the wealth in the nation. That's absurd. That's
pretty
bullshit. The fact that the laws and the rules and whoever actually wrote the book that says that that's okay allowed that to happen is clearly horseshit when everybody is suffering so much and there's a few people that are doing so well. That's just ridiculous. Yeah. The fact that society was set up that way and we're all okay with it. It's like we're a bunch of bitches. We all sit down and take it. You know what I mean? Yeah. When we don't have to.
If you look at the history books, there's been many times where people were like, "Fuck that,"
and they have, and they are right now. That's why I think this whole form of decentralization is actually going to upheaval mostly everything. And the reason I even brought it up was actually more for selfish plugging reasons for this whole deal. Yeah. And it's because I think decentralization is going to allow musicians to actually start getting what they deserve again. And I think it's going to be like the 1980s all over again really soon here. My idea is that, this whole rock and roll is dead thing is super true, super prevalent. Everybody kind of knows it too. And that's kind of what's exciting is that everybody knows rock music is dead. So whenever they hear anything, even just kind of slightly good, they're like, oh man, rock and roll, I hear it. It's taking over my body, and like decentralizing websites like YouTube or platforms like Spotify. I'm not saying that these are ever going to be decentralized. That's the total opposite of their mission statement as companies. But if there were competing platforms where it was musician owned and musician curated, and it had an ecosystem where like Joe Rogan brought this up, where he used Kendrick Lamar as an example. He said, what if through this whole type of technology, there could be like a Kendrick Lamar coin, right? And Kendrick Lamar sells it to his audience and they get, concert tickets for a better price or, first access to merchandise or, meet and greets, whatever, right? And as the price of the Kendrick Lamar token goes up, the more incentive there is to have it. The more people buy it, the more value there is in this specific ecosystem. And how much cooler would that be if somebody could have their own currency attached to an idea as opposed to a currency that's just a macro attached to everything?
You're gonna have pop stars pumping and dumping their own currency. That's what it sounds like.
You would. No, you actually.
It would just be kind of complicated.
You actually absolutely would. It wouldn't though. It doesn't.
You don't think it'd be complicated?
No, I think we have the devices. You know what? The fact we use cell phones to such an ill effect is kind of gross if you think about it. Like, what are we actually doing with these amazing pieces of technology that's really advancing us?
We're trying to
all I see is
interconnect.
people doing this.
Yeah.
All day. I mean,
people aren't using it wisely. That's what's happening.
It brainwashes you. It's a thing that brainwashes you.
They're not. Yeah, I would say the best use for these kinds of things would be true interaction. You guys remember that app Bump from like 10 years ago, where you could like bump someone else's cell phone and it would like exchange all your contact information? Like,
wow, that's cool.
That is really cool, right?
Really cool.
That's the future. QR codes, near field communication technology, the Internet of Things, being able to put one computer onto a surface and suddenly that's a computer. That's the future. We already know that. That's what all these big tech companies are designing the future around. So wouldn't it be safe to say that in the future, maybe let's, just for argument's sake, say in the future there are thousands of different types of digital currencies that all have their own sort of specific values, and we have our own coin, we want to promote it, and the way we do that is we go out, we tell people about it, and we can literally tap our phone onto someone else's phone and give them that coin instantly, and then they can do the same thing to someone else's, and it's going to become this thing where people's pieces of technology are interacting together in a haptic way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where we're actually truly engaging in a way digitally, but that has some sort of tangibility. And that's people's argument against Bitcoins. They say it has no intrinsic value, has no tangible value. Well, nothing has tangible value. Nothing has intrinsic value. If we weren't here, everything would just be
Exactly.
what it is. There would be no name for it, which kind of goes back to just nothing having a label at all, for any sort of sound reason other than us trying to make sense of it all. So to me, what makes more sense than, record labels and executives and people like that getting everything while everyone else gets screwed for no reason. It's just like it's a scam. It's a motherfucking scam is what it is. You know what I mean? And
Society's a lie. That's what's
society's
up.
a lie. It all needs to be destroyed. Down with the man anarchy in the UK.
Oh shit, that sounds heavy. That sounds like Subhumans.
Yep.
That one song.
I am an antichrist and I am an anarchist. Don't know what I want, but I know how to get it. I want to destroy myself because I want to be anarchy. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Podcast is over.
Is it?
I don't know. Let's check the time.
Nah, it's 12:05. You want to end it now?
Does anyone have any thoughts to wrap this up?
Well,
Hi. You're cute. What's your name? I'm Alex. Nice to meet you.
she is really cute.
She is really cute. I hope I see you again, not just in my dreams.
I was literally waiting for Alex to say something.
Oh, wait.
Oh shit, he's going. He's gonna go get her.
Follow.
There he goes running.
Daisy.
Do you guys have a permit for doing this?
We don't need one. We talked to the sheriffs
already.
We talked to the sheriffs already.
Are you sure?
We talked to
We
them.
talked to the sheriffs already.
I should have videotaped it. We talked to them. They're like, yeah, it's fine. It doesn't matter.
What I was gonna say, are you guys students here?
I am
Yeah.
a student. Yes. Who are you?
Commissioner of Campus and Environmental Affairs.
Cool.
So I have to make sure that people are doing legal stuff here. If you're
Great.
recording, you can't
Yeah.
record people, But what I was gonna say is, because I used to record here too.
Cool.
You can record in the library. If you go upstairs, they have a study room and it's pretty quiet. But I don't know if you're ever looking for a quiet, cool spot.
Okay.
And I used to tell people to come in. Some people would interview.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Nice,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you, dude. Appreciate it. Yeah, man. If people don't want to get recorded, I understand, but it's just
Legally, within the law,
yeah.
it's within my legal right to do this right now.
Yeah.
And I even spoke to the sheriffs. You saw me speak to the
Yeah.
sheriffs. Legally, technically, I'm allowed to do this.
Do you have a
Unless-
card? Sorry.
I don't have a card, no.
No business card?
No, I can give you my email though if you want it.
Sure.
Yeah, we had someone talk to us up there. Said we're blocking. She called them. She said we were.
That was very
blocking
inspiring, by the way.
Their,
That was rad.
The hallway or something like that.
Did you get on film?
No, I'm not sure.
Cool.
That
That's a good way to end it. Is it, we're still going?
we're still going, bro.
Never indoors unless you do it in the room.
Oh, okay.
But all I'm asking, because then if you guys are you guys often here at LABC?
This is our first time doing this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Have you guys created a website or anything? Is this a podcast?
That's a podcast. The LA Music Show.
We don't have anything yet.
No.
No. I can give you my email.
I'm interested.
Sure.
Honestly.
Oh, I thought maybe you were here to shut us down.
But
Oh.
making sure you're doing stuff.
Dude, we're living in
Actually-
2018. Everyone's gonna try to shut us down everywhere we go, Alex.
Okay, can I ask you 3 questions before we shut us down? Just
Well, no,
three.
he's not gonna shut us down.
Oh,
We're
you're
not
not
gonna
gonna
get shut
shut us
You're
down.
actually able to record outside.
Yeah.
But if you're ever inside a building, it has to be a private room. That's it. But
There you go.
Yeah.
doing audio versus video
Mhm.
is different. So I think you're fine.
Can I ask you 3 questions?
Sure.
And they're pretty basic questions. I just want to, because like we've been spouting a bunch of stuff all day about stuff, but I want to see what someone else thinks. Okay, first question. What do you think about PC culture?
PC? Could you define that a little bit more?
Like, what do you think about people sort of having to be more sensible with the things they say, even if the things they're saying aren't necessarily what they mean, but they're more just kind of like a lark? And I guess...
Like opinion?
Yeah, I guess, no, it's more like, okay, if somebody is being offensive, but they're doing it in a way that's funny, do you think that that's okay as long as they maybe don't necessarily mean it? Like, I guess, because it, like, the whole idea of PC culture is politically correct. You know what I mean? Like, you're not supposed to say certain things, and when freedom of speech becomes an issue where you're not supposed to say certain things, and it might not even necessarily be offensive in a way that like you mean it to be offensive, but it just comes off as offensive. I guess, is that like we're just, I don't know. Where's your general like feel on that? And you can have whatever opinion you want, because I'm actually genuinely curious. Like, my personal view is I sort of think everyone should sort of be able to say what they want. But if it does hurt somebody's feelings and you can clearly see somebody is visually upset, then maybe it's a good idea just as a nice person to sort of backtrack and just not berate somebody. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I draw the line personally. But what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think if you're famous, you obviously have to watch what the hell you say. But
like Kanye West, for instance, right?
If you're going to be an idiot like him and you're going to do things like that, hopefully you know what the hell you're talking about. Even if it's something I don't agree with, hopefully you have the right information. As long as you're talking about the right information, like, irony is always funny. That's just shit that happens. You can't control it. But, for that moment there, I would say, like, as long as you have your facts right, I think the joke should be fine, as long as you mean no harm. I mean, comedians go through this shit all the time, that they can't say this, they can't say that. Oh, you're not white, you're not black, you're not something. Everyone's gonna have an opinion. Honestly, if you want to be an artist too, if you want to do something with yourself, you gotta just not care about anyone else's opinions. It just kind of be, like, research for yourself. That's really it. If you're gonna be opinionated, do research. Don't just be a fucking asshole like Kanye West and just talk about shit.
I may have judged you harshly because you're an authority figure, but that is such a goddamn great answer. Thank you. Okay.
Well, right.
Second question. Do you think rock and roll is dead?
Never.
And if so...
Never.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't. That's a good answer.
It's always around. It changes. Music always changes. It develops. It evolves. There's always something new.
Why do you think it's at a lull right now?
I think
societally speaking,
has been taking the game a little bit more in pop culture. Rap is becoming pop, and we're kind of losing what it means to have one stable rock star, one stable pop star. Like, Lady Gaga is now doing Broadway shows, but she's also doing her weird pop stuff, but then she's also gonna perform with Metallica. You can't put people nowadays in some sort of line, some sort of direction. There's so many ways to go. Just keep taking trails.
Did you see A Star Is Born?
Hiking. Not yet.
It's great. You should see it. I just saw it the other night. It's amazing. You should see it. Everyone go see that movie now. It's awesome. Sorry,
shout out to the drag queens in there, Willem.
Shout out to the drag queens in there. They were great.
They're beautiful. Yes. And what's your third question?
And my third question is, what do you think about Bitcoin?
Bitcoin? Oh, what a mess. These people pay with real money for fake money that then doesn't last, and it varies every second. That makes no sense why anyone would focus on that unless you're a con artist and you're good at it.
That's a good answer.
But besides that, fuck Bitcoin.
What do you think about decentralization? Because that's the whole idea about Bitcoin, and I can totally see where you're coming from with your opinion on that, and it's actually very valid. But the idea of taking central authority away from powerful players and maybe democratizing it. And what we were talking about was music. Like, if, for instance, you get 1 million plays on Spotify, the artist gets $4. So that means even if you get 100 million hits, that's $400. That's nothing. So what I'm thinking is, would it make sense if there was some sort of like platform where the artists owned it and curated it and profited from it in a way where it could be sort of decentralized in that way? And I wasn't familiar with the idea of decentralization prior to Bitcoin. So if anything, maybe that's what its strength is. But what do you think about that?
I just don't think necessarily that the the way we value money and the way we use money is proper, I don't think money should exist because it's just fake. It's just paper.
Even fiat. So you think of fiat and Bitcoin and any sort of currency is basically the same way. If you were king of the world, would you think bartering would be a good solution as far as where everybody has something to offer society?
Well, I mean, I think that if society worked better as a whole to make sure the community was getting everything they needed, as instead of planting palm trees, we should be growing date palm trees that give something back to the communities, things like that don't. It shouldn't be about money. It should just be about living, having the right resources. The issue with this world is it's always health versus money, and it should be the betterment of health, wealth, and stability for every human being on Earth and every living creature, to be honest. So that's why I don't believe in money, but we already have to deal with it. But hopefully in the future we can go to a trade system, because I don't think Bitcoin's a good choice. I don't think any of these types of these systems that are able to be played so easily versus just being in the natural world.
Right.
You know,
Systems of oppression as opposed to people actually doing what we know we need to do to be able to come together and change the world.
I mean, like, the reason why religion and money were made was to create a way to control the populace, because it was getting bigger and bigger, and kings and queens didn't know what the hell to do. So then that's how, Christianity became such a big thing. So if it really goes down to it, it was a good way to start us off back then, because it was necessary for that time. But right now, I think we need to move away from money.
Damn, dude, you were a kick-ass guest on this podcast. I was not expecting any of that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Thank you for actually being a college-educated person that could give us something that... Hell, you said things in a way that changed my perspective, and that's very rare. I appreciate that.
No, I try to advocate for new thinking.
Yeah.
Because everyone's so stuck in... I always say people are stuck in two worlds. Their own world and the one we share with everyone else. And the problem is we keep dissociating the two when we really only live in one. And so we got to find a better way to think about how other people live their lives, the whole wear an Indian's moccasins to figure out what they really went through kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Eddie.
Eddie Kaufman-Morrow. I am the ASU Commissioner of Campus and Environmental Affairs. We are having just a couple things and events coming on here. Just check it out at LABC. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you for being part of the LA Music Show, man.
Thank you, man.
Have a good one.
Hey, you capped it off great, man. That was a cherry on top.
Is that kombucha?
No, this is tea.
Oh, okay.
It's green tea. Let me get it.
Hey, take care, Eddie. Thanks, man.
Have a good one.
And that concludes the LA Rock Show. And as they say in,
Yeah, that was a good amount.
as they say in
We did a good hour and a
pretty
half.
much everywhere, go fuck yourself.
You want to end it soon? Are we ending it soon?
I think that's it.
What?
Yeah.
Anchor. Anchor is a great way to go.
Anchor? What is it?
It gives you everything you need. It helps you set up everything. Trust.
Anchor.
Anchor.
Look it up, huh?
Okay.
It's the number one leading app for podcasts.
Got it.
Put your podcast on every single thing.
Wow.
Oh.
Spotify, everything.
You're about to be
thanks.
famous, Eddie.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that was great. This was a
Well,
great
that's it.
This was a great
We're done.
podcast. I mean, unless you guys have any closing arguments, words, complaints,
I just want to
suggestions.
say, hopefully with this podcast, with the LA Music Show, that we're able to bring in a lot of underground artists, a lot of bands, a lot of rock musicians that grew up in the 80s and 90s. In our generation, people from our generation, because I'm telling you, man, there's a huge disconnect in the rock and roll scene. And my only hope is that this podcast is able to really mend and bridge that gap between the artist, the audience, and pop culture, because that's fucking important, dude. And I truly believe rock and roll is missing that. Hip hop community it's a huge matrix, man, and rock and roll community does not have that. At least that's my opinion. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm oblivious to it, but I mean, what do you think, Alex? Do you think it's there?
I think if people like you, me and Eel, and even the friends we've made today who came and talked to us continue to express ourselves, be vocal, put these words and messages out into the world, that soon this no longer will be an issue. You know, I think the way people create change is by addressing problems directly. You know, it's when people become divisive, but they don't know how to actually choose a side or take a real opinion. We're all pretty opinionated, and we all have our own unique views too. I would go as far as to say that we didn't all necessarily like match in our worldviews today, and that's great. We shouldn't. If we were all just kissing each other's butts and had the same goddamn worldview, this wouldn't be a very interesting podcast. You know, so if anything, I would say that continuing to bring new artists, new perspectives, new realities into this one is what's going to actually truly bring any sort of semblance of rock and roll back from the dead. You know, this was just a continuation of the work we're already doing, that we've been doing. And we've been doing this for 15 years, folks. We met in high school. I had a broken leg, and I literally like stumbled over to Seraphin while he was playing on stage like Eddie Van Halen and said, dude, I need you to be in my band. You know, and like I knew from that moment, I was like, this guy is going to be the future. I could see it, you know. And the other artists I've worked with, you know, Eel, my friend Rory, my friend Matt, shout out to all the homies, you know, they've all had something extraordinarily unique that, you know, makes me believe, yeah, this is the next wave.
Rad, bro.
Rad, bro. You got any final thoughts, Eel?
Yeah, man. I think there's so many unique people in Los Angeles, and there might be 1,000 podcasts here. A lot of YouTube personalities. I pick up some of these people, but I think a show focused around music, that musicians talking about like world politics and this and that. Anything that comes up is going to be really interesting, and people want to hear it because we have a different take on it. And musicians that do have a different take on a lot of things, you know, very opinionated. We go down rabbit holes, you know, when we think and stuff. So I think this is going to be continually interesting, no matter who we have come up. You know, it's going to go. We're going to talk about music at first, but it's going to go into all the different things we could talk about, and people are really going to want to hear it after a while. You know.
I agree. Completely agree.
Definitely. I'd go as far as to say this was totally dope. We talked to hot girls. We talked to guys with swords, and to Jason Voorhees, and to very open-minded, politically driven affiliates of such a great college such as LA Valley, where we are currently shooting this wonderful podcast. So,
and ironically, everyone tried shutting us down except for the sheriffs.
Except for the sheriffs.
The sheriffs were the only ones that were down for this podcast.
Yeah, well, they are pretty punk rock, you know.
They're very punk rock, and I admire the sheriffs. Shout out to the LAPD and the sheriffs on campus at LAVC.
Awesome.
Shout out to my mom. I hope you're not watching this.